If you want to learn a little more about how to troubleshoot and repair a water heater, then stay tuned. This video is for you. I'm going to depart from my typical videos of photography and technology. When I created this channel, it was called RealWorld, and the idea behind it was to showcase situations that happen in the real world, like a broken furnace or AC unit or drywall repair, or in this case, a broken water heater. So I'm going to start off and just provide a quick summary. A few days ago, discovered that there's no hot water. Now, I'm using a water heater that is branded Richmond. It's made by Rheem. And I bought this from Menards. Now they sell brands in all the big box stores, and putting a water heater in really isn't a huge deal. So I put this in just under a year ago. It's not even that old. But when I discovered there's no hot water, I come down, look at the pilot, and the pilot light is not lit. Now you can relight the pilot yourself, and that's what I attempted to do. And when you go through this exercise, the idea behind it is that there is a thermocoupler, which is a device that sits in the pilot to let the gas valve know that the pilot is lit. Now this is really important, because if that pilot's not lit and your gas valve sends gas into the burner and there's nothing to light it, gas will just permeate through the area that the water heater's in, and that's not good. So in this case, I attempted to light the pilot, and as soon as I took my finger off the pilot button, it failed to stay lit, which told me that it might be the thermocoupler. And so before doing anything, I decided to call the manufacturer, and they had confirmed with me that there was a defect. They sent out a bunch of units that had either a defective thermocoupler or it had a defective valve. Now they had sent me both, although I didn't want to wait for the thermocoupler because they sell it down at Menards and other box stores. It wasn't a big deal. I just went ahead and bought one. It's like $10, no big deal. And this is the thermocoupler. So you can see it's 24, mine's 24 inches in length. They kind of vary depending on the unit that you have, but the principle is the same. So you have this piece on the end right here, which sits inside the flame, and then it sends a small current back through the wire and into the gas valve. Well, I replaced this, and that didn't work. So I quickly got a hold of the manufacturer again, and they agreed to send me that gas valve, and they overnighted it to me, which is nice. I just got that in. This right here is my old gas valve. Now, what's interesting about this, and if you're not familiar with the gas valve, let me just kind of show this to you. Okay, so it has the stem that sticks into the water tank. And the idea behind this stem is it monitors the temperature of the water. So when the water starts to go down in temperature, it opens up the gas line and fires up the igniter, and it lights that flame, and that heats up your water. That is the primary purpose behind the gas valve, that's all. There's not a whole lot to a water heater to get them to work, but this is a critical component. So again, we're thinking that this is bad. I'm going to take a little time, and we're going to step through this, and I'm going to go ahead and replace it. And again, this might help you out. Two things. Again, I've already replaced this. This didn't work, the thermocoupler, and now it's time to replace this gas valve. Something I do want to talk about real quick is just basic maintenance for your water heater. Every 6 months or maybe once a year or so, you should drain it to get the sediment out. Now again, this is just under a year, and I drained all the water out so I could take the gas valve out. Now when I did this, I was able to look inside just barely, because it's only like maybe an inch hole. So I got a little light in there, and I could see a lot of sediment. So I decided to hook up my shop vac, and I used, I think it's a 1/2 inch vinyl tube, and I put that in to try and suck out some of the sediment, and that helped. I was able to get a bunch of gunk out of there. And again, not that you have to do that. A lot of that sediment may just drain out when you hook your garden hose to it. And I'm going to go ahead, take this camera off the tripod, and we're going to kind of get down here closer to the water heater and step through the replacement of this gas valve. And you can also see, I'll show you how the water hose is hooked up to do the drain of the water heater, and let's make it happen. We have our main gas line right here, and I got the gas valve right here, which is turned off. Now, obviously, I did all this before I took off the gas valve, which goes right here. And you'll see right here, this is the gas line that goes into the water heater. This is our thermocouple right here, and this is the gas line for the pilot. This is the igniter as well. So all this is pretty straightforward. You can see I got the garden hose right here to drain the tank. Once this is hooked up, you're just unscrewing that. You can see it's a little wet still, but all the water is drained out. And when I went to clean this out, I just put I put my tube right through the hole here, and then the bottom of the tank probably sits right down in here. So I was just able to kind of suction most of that out, and it worked out well. So with all that, we're going to go ahead and start the reassembly of the gas valve. First thing I want to do is go ahead and tighten down our drain valve. So I'm just going to turn this clockwise, make it nice and tight. That feels good. I'm going to go ahead and take off the hose. Might have just a little bit of water coming out, which we really don't. That seems good. Get that off to the side. Let's go ahead and tighten this down a little more. That feels good. It's nice and snug in there. All right. Next up, we're going to take a look at the new gas valve. This is the new gas valve. Looks just like the other one, which it should. Now, one thing that's interesting is that in order to tighten this, we can hand tighten it, but then we have a piping, we have a piece of pipe that comes out about 6 inches or so, and I actually have it connected to the other gas valve. I'm going to go ahead and take that on, or take it off the other one. I'm going to put it on this one. But for right now, I can go ahead and put this in, and I can just hand tighten this. So that's what we're going to do. One other notable is that right here you have the Teflon tape on it. This gas valve came with the tape already on it, so I don't need to put any additional tape on here. So I'm going to go ahead and just put this in. What you want to do is take this to the point that you can hand tighten it. And it looks like I'm going to get one more turn out of this, maybe. Let's see. Yeah. So with this, completely upside down right now. I'm going to go ahead and take this off. You got my pipe right here. So with this, I'm just going to go ahead and screw this on. Keep in mind, this is really used to just turn this thing. It gives you some leverage. There we go. Just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and screw this so it's upright. Let's say that's good right there. Go ahead and take the pipe out of this. Put that off to the side because I don't think we really need it anymore. Got our gas line right here. This was the connector that we had in it. And you can see we have some of the piping dope on here. All I'm going to do is just kind of wipe this up a little bit, and we're going to put some new piping dope on there as well. But let me go ahead and wipe this up first. And right here I have the piping dope. This is just the Harvey seal. It's a Formula 55. And I just picked this up at Menards. Any kind of piping dope will work. Just ensure that it is good for gas, and this specifically says it's good for gas. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of this. And if you don't know much about this, you can do a little research on this, but it's just good to seal up all the threads. That's really what piping dope is for. And you would not use Teflon tape on gas. So you want to use the piping dope, and that's what we're doing here. Now you want to be careful to not get the piping dope inside the gas line or inside the pipe here if you can avoid it. So just kind of coat it on the outside like I'm doing right here. Alright, that's our piping dope. And what we're going to do is go ahead and put this on. Now we're going to go ahead and do it on this thread too. But first we're going to get this screwed in. Use a wrench, and we're going to tighten this down. Now you don't need to torque this a lot. You just want to get it snug. And now I'm going to put a little bit of A little bit of dope right here. And then we're going to go ahead and connect it. And this will be done. What you can do is take 2 wrenches, hold it like this. I'm going to pull up on one while you're turning down on the other. Tighten that up. And that feels nice and good on there. All right. Now I like to come through and I like to clean up. You can see a little bit of this pipe dope right here. And this kind of lets you know that it's squeezed out, squeezed through, and that's actually a good sign. So I like to come through and just kind of wipe this up a little bit, that's all. Grab yourself a rag if you want, but just clean it up. We want to go ahead and connect up our lines. We're going to start with the gas line right here. Put it up in here just like this. And we're going to get our locking nut here. Let's see if we can get this to play well. You just kind of want to finger tighten this for now. Be sure you don't cross thread anything, so just be sure it's going smooth. That it feels good. So what I'm going to do is grab a wrench and I'm just going to tighten this down. It's easier to tighten this without the other 2 pieces on here. You can still tighten with it, but it's going to be just a little more challenging. Alright, so now I'm hitting that point where it's just kind of snug. And I'm going to just take it a little more. And just sort of, I just want to make that tight, that's all. I don't need to super torque it, but you want it to be tight. That's good right there. Let's go ahead and work the gas line to the pilot valve, which is right here. This is coming in, there's a little spot right here where my finger is. I'm going to put that up here. Same thing, all I really want to do is get my nut up in here and finger tighten. It's going on nice. So that feels good right there. And then our thermocouple. So there's a spot right here for it, and when you put this inside there, it should be good. And start to finger tighten this. Now you might think this is going to tighten up further, but it really doesn't because there's not a whole lot of room in there. I can tell I didn't cross thread though. It feels good. So what I'm going to do now is use my wrench. I'm going to go back and just tighten this up a little bit. Now I'm the kind of person where I like to know my torque specs because I like a torque wrench and I like to torque everything down to spec. But here, it's not the case. One, you don't want to over torque anything. You don't need to. I mean, you want everything snug. Last thing I want to do as far as this goes is to go ahead and connect the ignition wire. Now right here on this side, you'll see where it goes in. This is the igniter, and right here is where the wire goes. So we're going to go ahead and connect this up. I'm going to need my other hand to do that. So it's going to look like this. Now before I go ahead and fill this tank up, I want to see if I can get the pilot light to stay lit, and that's actually going to be a good sign because the problem was the pilot light wasn't staying lit. So I want to know that if I replace the gas valve and I replace the thermocouple, that's the answer. So I'm going to go ahead and run the check right now, and we'll go from there. As I go to turn this on, one thing I want to add is I got a bottle right here with a little bit of water and some soap in it. Now, this is important because you want to check your connections. I'm going to go ahead and turn this gas on, and even before lighting anything, I'm going to spray a little bit of this on the connections right here where I have the pipe dope in it, and I want to be sure there's nothing leaking. Now, when you use a solution like this, you should see some bubbles coming up, and that'll tell you that it's leaking and it's not good. If that happens, you need to tighten the connections down a bit more. You may even want to pull them apart, put some more pipe dope on there, and put it back together. But let's go ahead and do this to be sure that we are safe and good to go. I do not see any bubbles. It's a good sign. Spray a little more. Better be safe than sorry, right? That's what I always say. I got nothing. Good sign. Now that the soap and water have checked out, we want to go ahead and move the dial over to pilot. And you can see right here, we're now set to pilot. And what you do is you hold this pilot button down. And when you do that, I'm going to go ahead and push the igniter over here. That's going to set the spark off inside our little window down here. We're going to see if we can get a flame and we can get it lit. Now the idea behind this is that once that lights, you want to hold this pilot down for another 30 to 60 seconds. And then you take your finger off the pilot and the pilot light should still be lit. Now if it's not, that's usually a sign that the thermocouple is bad, which again is right here, and I've already replaced that. I did this before the gas valve, and I know that this is fine. So we're going to see if this stays lit right here. So I'm going to go ahead and hold this down, and we're going to start pushing the igniter. And this just gives us a little spark in here. I'm going to show you what this looks like because we do have flame. I can see it. We'll see if you can see that. So after this has been going for about 30 seconds, maybe 60 seconds, I'm going to take my finger off, which it's been about that time. And the flame remains lit. So that's a good thing. That means that we have solved our problem. That means that after replacing this is low-hanging fruit. Go ahead and try this first. Because this, again, is like $10 or less. Nothing big here. This can be a little more. This can run maybe $100, $150 depending on your unit. But this turned out to be the problem. And again, Rheem had said that they had a defect and it was either with this or that. So they went ahead and supplied this gas valve right here. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and get the water going into the tank. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the gas off right now because I don't need it to heat nothing. So we're going to go ahead and go upstairs. We're going to open up some of the faucets and then flood the tank with water. I just finished opening up all the hot water faucets and came down and I turned the water line on right here. And then basically you just kind of wait until you get the water running throughout the system because it'll relieve all the pressure. And so when you start getting water running through your system, and it might take a couple minutes to get there, at least it did so in my case, but when that happens, you can start to shut the water off at the rest of the faucets. And at this point, this tank, ooh, she's nice and heavy now. So this tank is good to go. Although, there's one more thing we need to do, and that is to light it. So we want to get the pilot going again, and then set the temperature to it, and let the hot water start to generate. So let's make that happen. I know that this was a departure from my other videos, but I hope you found it useful. And I hope this gave you some tips and tricks so that if you have problems with your water heater, this might point you in the right direction. So if you did enjoy this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so, subscribe to the channel. It's called RealWorld. More often than not, I post videos about photography and technology, but you never know. So until the next video, take care of yourself and be safe.